We're going to move on now to Thistle. So Thistle Pettersen is from the USA. She's going to speak about the many ways in which Madison activist organizations, a radio station, music venues, and her peers in the Madison community kicked her out due to feminist views of transgenderism and gender ideology. So thank you so much for coming, Thistle, and over to you.
It's really great to be here so that I can talk about my experiences with being kicked out of organizations, a neighborhood center, and music venues due to publicly expressing gender critical and feminist views in my community in Madison, Wisconsin. I love you women very much and give my life to the cause of women's freedom. So how did it all happen? The mechanics or the causes and dynamics of me being kicked out and shunned by organizations and peers alike were fueled by the lie that I am a violent threat to people who identify as trans. This lie was generated by a mob of trans activists, and it spread like a social virus in my community, which in turn started the shunning and the banning. All of it started back in 2012 when I tried to hold a workshop on feminism at the Anarchist Book Fair in the Twin Cities, but it was canceled due to transphobia, a term that I had never heard before. I was attacked on the book fair's Facebook event page by a huge mob. Somebody threatened to break my guitar and land me in the hospital. And I was astounded that this was tolerated and supported by the Anarchist Book Fair organizers. I contacted Sheila Jeffries to consult with her and let her know what had happened to me. And I asked her for an interview 2 years later when her book, Gender Hurts, came out. I applied to do an Access Hour show and then went on community radio station WORT 89.9 FM in Madison. I had permission from the Access Hour producer and the news director to do this show, and I was no stranger to the radio station. Having grown up in Madison, I volunteered there regularly, answering phones during their pledge drives and volunteering at benefit concerts to raise money for WORT. And also I went on the air quite regularly to make announcements about my environmentalist activist projects and my music projects. I did the program with Jeffries with goodwill and curiosity and an intention to have public dialogue about gender. Well, dialogue is what they had, because before and after my 1 hour show was aired, the WORT community produced multiple shows, reports, and statements about my single 1 hour program with Jeffries. The local newspaper even had an article about my show with Jeffries, calling her a controversial feminist known for her negative portrayal of transgender people. This was all in 2014. And this article in the paper and all of those WORT statements, reports, and shows were meant to marginalize and cut down my single 1 hour program. I was called a hateful bigot for the first time during this period in 2014, and it infuriated me. But what infuriated me more was that regular people I considered ethical and friends of mine, left me in the dust. Didn't they realize that by silencing me, they were silencing themselves too by submitting to the forceful will of the gender activists? I was the example of what would happen to them if they spoke out, but it was by their complicity that they made me into that example. And I stood in disbelief as my social, political, and artistic world crumbled around me. Having said that, there were significant numbers of others who wrote to the station in support of Sheila, me, and the show. I came to count on this support in Madison more than once. Flashing forward to 2019, I had nine supporters willing to show their faces and speak at the Wilmar Neighborhood Center's board meeting in protest of their ban on me there. It should be noted that the board of directors at the Wilmar ignored these 9 supporters. But getting back to 2014 and 15, it was with this support and fortitude and some good social skills that I managed to recover from the backlash of doing feminist radio shows on WORT. A local theater friend circulated a petition at the Crystal Corner Bar for me to get a show there, and she was successful. The reason the petition was necessary was due to the backlash, Everyone knew about the radio shows, and there is a lot of overlap in the Madison community between WORT, the Wilmar Neighborhood Center, and the Crystal. Thanks to the petition and the will of the regulars at the bar, I enjoyed playing a monthly show with my band at the Crystal Corner Bar throughout 2016. So this is a picture of the marquee in front of the bar. And as you can see, my act was one of 3 regular shows. Of note, the 2 others were boy bands, all males in those acts. And I was the only female act playing at the bar on a regular basis. And David Hecht, his name is up there. He sits on the board, or he used to sit on the board at the Wilmar Neighborhood Center. One of the bartenders at the Crystal Corner Bar is a major volunteer at WORT. So it's all in a neighborhood, and the bar is in the arts district in Madison. So if you want to be an artist or a musician or an actor, you go and you mix and mingle with people at this bar and others in this neighborhood. So I just wanted to give you a little context of what it was like at the Crystal Corner Bar for me. Getting the show at the Crystal after I had been banned and defamed at the community radio station led me to falsely believe that I could separate my music career and presence on the music scene in Madison from my feminist stance. I believed in, and in one-on-one conversations with many people, I experienced understanding, dialogue, warmth, and a willingness to tolerate differing views. I still believe that the majority of people fall into this camp, but that they are bullied into silence and apathy, believing that if they just stay silent, the problem will be minimalized or even just fade away and never impact them. My social recovery in Madison was cut short in early 2017 after the January 20th Women's March, where I held up this sign. This sign actually was sent around the world. Kathy Brennan initiated a sisterhood solidarity act, and dozens of women around the world, after they saw what happened to me for holding up this sign, held it up, and pictures were taken of them, and they were shared on a website that unfortunately was taken down, and I don't have access to those pictures anymore. So anyway, after holding up this sign, starting in February of 2017, an all-out campaign to destroy my music career ensued. This campaign was begun and sanctioned by the Wisconsin Network for Peace and Justice, an umbrella organization in Wisconsin that was founded in 1991 to oppose the Iraq War and the violence of wars in general. So they've since added the term sustainability to their name, but everyone still knows them as WMPJ. By 2017, WMPJ was home to hundreds of peace and justice organizations, including one that I co-founded called Madison Action for Mining Alternatives, or MAMA, an environmentalist org that fought frac sands mining, pipelines, and the Pinocchio Hills iron mine. It was with MAMA that I was organizing the Pipeline Fighters Benefit Extravaganza, an event that took the better part of a year to plan. The TRAs in the last week leading up to this event convinced my co-organizers to cancel my musical performance from the lineup. Here is WMPJ's statement that they published on February 3rd, 2017, and kept up for 3 years after that, despite many pleas from me and others that they take it down. And I realize it's a little difficult to read. So, but in a nutshell, basically it says that I, Thistle Pettersen, am causing harm to trans people in Madison, and that I was publishing hate statements online against trans people, and that these hate statements lead to violence against trans people and suicides, and that I have no place in Madison. An AGP male in Madison felt emboldened by WMPJ's February 3rd statement and launched a campaign to get me fired as a regular musician at the Crystal Corner Bar. And here's a pic of that lovely human named Christine Elaine. He had dozens, maybe even hundreds of pics like this one up on his social media at the time. He fronted a band in 2018 called Dumpster Dick that featured a song about burning turfs in a dumpster. And here, the next slide is a picture of a Facebook event page that he and others used to get people to sign up to come to my performance, to disrupt it in protest of me having a show there. It's interesting to note that it took some convincing, because it took some convincing for me to get the show at the Crystal Corner Bar, and it took some convincing for them to take it away as well. But once they were convinced, then there was no going back. I never was able to play there again. Little by little, old friends became worried about what this shunning would do to them and their reputations, and I lost many friendships. By 2022, my reputation as an environmental activist, variety show organizer, and musician has basically been ruined. Over the past 5 years, starting in 2017, I have been barred from participating in the regular day-to-day, month-to-month, and year-to-year functioning of live music and cultural events in my city, something I had a regular hand in organizing and participating in for years before that. Let me pause to say that a main reason trans activists target me is because I never back down. And in fact, when I was temporarily banned from the community radio station due to complaints from TRAs, I decided to start my own community radio station online, and WLRN was born in 2016. The TRAs hate that I am not alone in my views and that our collective of media activist women produces a monthly feminist radio show, and that we have not missed 1 month since May of 2016. I want to just say hello briefly and shout out to my sisters, April Null, Emily Ann Lorenzen, Aurora Linnea, Sekhmet Sheowl, and Jenna DeQuarto at the station. As you can see from the WMPJ statement and Christine Elaine's campaign, they basically say that I have no place in Madison, but I don't give up easily, and I am committed to staying here to continue fighting the good fight, to be a citizen again in my city and a musician, which brings me to something I want to announce. And that is that during the winter of 2020 and 21, when we were all on lockdown, I was able to work with an old friend in his basement studio to create this new album of music. It's interesting to note that this old friend is a regular volunteer at the community radio station, and that he represents a Madison that I hope will come to accept me again as a musician in town. Being canceled has led people like this WORT volunteer to be curious and also compassionate about what has happened to me. In fact, it was a WORT staff member who wishes to remain anonymous who came to my apartment in early 2016 to help me set up my dining room to be a studio for WLRN. I point this out because even though the TRAs like to make it seem like I am alone, I would not have been able to co-create WLRN, nor would I have been able to release my new album of original music if it weren't for locals in Madison who have supported me. And you can find that album of music at thistlepettersen.com, just for your information. But now getting back to the Pipeline Fighters Benefit Extravaganza held in early 2017. As you can see, there was a lot that went into this event. The WMPJ February 3rd defaming statement, released just 1 day before this event, was definitely a huge part of the mechanics of how TRAs damaged not just me, but our environmental movement. They did not need to publish that statement. I had already agreed not to perform at the event. So the only purpose of the statement was to spread the lie that I was hateful and causing violence in Madison, and to scare and intimidate individuals and environmental organizations away from associating with me. I attended the February 4th event in defiance. I had organized the silent auction, booked all of the acts in the lineup, and had secured the sponsoring orgs and logos. For this reason, and because my cancellation was so fresh and so shocking, I went to the event I had organized and stayed till the very end for the funk band that I had booked, and I danced with everyone until the close. The TRAs who had complained the loudest and the most about me were not even there. It was so ridiculous that I was barred from performing at the very event that I had helped organize. And this is how I feel what happened to me has had a lasting harmful impact on the environmental movement in Madison as well. MAMA, the Madison Action for Mining Alternatives, fell apart shortly after the benefit, with a longtime member saying she would no longer participate if I was involved. So we decided to dissolve the organization. The other environmental orgs that were there were threatened. The other environmental organizations that were threatened by the TRAs with being labeled transphobic have also not been the same ever since I was canceled in this way by the WNPJ. Of note, 2 of the 5 organizers on the team creating the Pipeline Fighters benefit extravaganza have since publicly regretted their decision to pressure me to not play my music at the event. One of them even wrote a letter to the Wilmar Neighborhood Center that he allowed Defend Feminists to publish on their website. In that letter, he writes, quote, "That night, when I found it easier to give in to mob demands 2 years ago, will haunt me to my grave. I would not want you to fall into the trap of what seems easier in the flush of a moment of contention when the path down the road to mob pressure ends in rupturing everything we all hold dear in a fair and democratic society." And by the way, defendfeminists.net is a website that members of FIST created to help me document and fight what has happened to me. Their website is defendfeminists.net if you want to explore the nitty-gritty details of all that has happened. Shame on Wisconsin Network for Peace and Justice. Shame on the Wilmar Neighborhood Center and the Crystal Corner Bar. Good on WORT 89.9 FM for lifting the ban on me in 2016 and for airing all of my Feminist Access Hour programs I have applied to do. WORT is the lone institution in Madison that I've been involved with that continues to have a strong contingent of people in favor of free speech, despite most at the station being captured by the trans cult. And finally, it's so freeing to share my story with all of you today. Come to Madison, my hometown in Wisconsin, this spring on April 23rd for a WLRN Public Library panel discussion called Courage Calls to Courage, featuring the speakers you see pictured here. This event was initiated by Lear Keith after hearing about the disorderly conduct with a hate crime enhancement citation I received from the Madison police for allegedly putting up a feminist sticker on State Street last summer. Let's show Madison that we are not alone, that TERFs take back the town square. There will also be a women-only weekend of fun and solidarity with direct action and musical performances that you can participate in. The event in Madison at the Public Library is in person, so please don't get a ticket to the event unless you're going to be in Madison. There are only 175 available, and they're free. But you need to be able to come physically to Madison. Also, I wanted to announce that there's going to be a critical mass bike ride on Friday evening for the Sisters for Sisters event. So sign up for that weekend and come to Madison. It's going to be called Turf Traffic. And we're going to take the streets on our bicycles. We have so many fun things planned for the weekend. I really hope that all of you can make it. So I'm really looking forward to just taking over the town. And we've got lots of plans for how to do that symbolically and physically, to just be there and have a presence in the town like never before. So I hope you all can make it to Madison for the Public Library event and for the Sisters for Sisters event. And I think that's all I have to say for now. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here to tell my story. It's hard. It's so hard. I'll probably cry a lot after this. My stomach hurts. What Helen was just saying is so true. It's so hard, but we have to do it. We have to stand up. We have to take back the town square. I mean, women are human beings. We're people. We have the right to be in public without being harassed and to participate in all of these organizations and all of these movements without, it's harming our environmental movement to this gender identity ideology stuff. It's harming everything. And so come out wherever you are, and let's stand strong together in solidarity. Thank you again for having me on Feminist Question Time. It is a real honor to be here. Thank you so much.